In reading today, we are learning more about figurative language. So, first thing I want to show you is our figurative language poster. All right. So, figurative language makes writing sound more interesting. That is why people use figurative language. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. If you said, that boy has a yellow raincoat, that was much less interesting than saying that boy's raincoat is as yellow as a lemon. Okay? So that is why authors use figurative language, and that is why readers like to read figurative language. All right. Yesterday, we learned similes. They compare two things, but the rule is they have to use like or as. So there's our example. The cat was black like night. Okay? I didn't say the cat was night. I said he's black like night. A metaphor compares two things without using like or as, and that is what we will learn new today. Okay? But before we move on to metaphors, I need us to review similes. So make sure you've got your paper or your whiteboard, whatever you would like to write your similes in. I do not care. So if you need to grab that, make sure you pause, but I'll keep on going. So, similes. Here are some examples. The car seat was as hot as a frying pan. Okay? So, they use the like or as. They followed the rules. And when they use as, usually there will be two of them. It'll say was as blank as something. Okay? So that one used as. This one, the week-old bread was like a rock. Like. Okay, they use that key word. All right, remember, a simile must contain the word as or like. That's the rule. So if you are not using those words in your comparison, you're not writing a simile. Okay, so our directions. Write a simile about each of the things listed below. Your simile does not have to contain those exact words. For example, for the beach, you could write a simile about sand, water, beach, towel, shells, etc. So they're basically giving us a topic, and then we need to think of a sentence, a simile sentence, that we can use to talk about the topic they give us. Now, if you have your own ideas and you're doing this correctly, you don't have to use my sentences. You can write down whatever sentences that you want to write. But if you're having trouble or just want to get started with me, I will provide my own examples. So we need to write a simile, something about a kitten, which is easy for me. I have a kitten at my house right now. So I'm going to talk about how silly my kitten is. I'm going to compare it to something silly. You could also talk about a kitten being cute, comparing it to something cute. You could compare a kitten to a baby. They're kind of helpless sometimes. So whatever you want to compare your kitten to, you can go ahead and write your own sentence, or you can borrow some of my ideas. So I'm going to say, my kitten is absurd. I'm using one of our vocab words instead of silly. Is absurd like a clown. All right, now I'll check to make sure I made a simile. I compared my kitten to a clown, and I did use like or as. I used like in this example. So my kitten is absurd like a clown. Okay? The next one, they want us to come up with a simile about a book. All right, well, when I think of books, books are fun to read. I could talk about how fun a book is. Sometimes books are really long. I could talk about how long the book is. I could talk about all sorts of things about a book, okay? The size of the book, the color of the book. Maybe it's boring, okay? So I'm going to pretend that the book I'm talking about is the most boring book I've ever read, because similes should be fun to write. This book is as boring as watching paint dry. All right, let's make sure it's a simile. Okay, this book is as boring as watching paint dry. All right, I am comparing my book to watching paint dry. And I did use my comparing word. Oops, that should say is as boring as. All right. If you're falling behind and you want more time to think up your similes, you can always pause the video, but I'm going to keep it going. Okay, the next one, we need to come up with a simile about a chicken. Okay, so I'm thinking of a living chicken, not chicken on my plate to eat. And when I think of a chicken, I think of them running around kind of crazy. So, let's say this. The chicken was acting like an Olympic sprinter. All right, I'm comparing the chicken to an Olympic sprinter because they're both running around so fast. And I used the word like, so it is a simile. Ooh, we have a yummy dessert. We've thought a lot about desserts in the past few weeks. So you can picture any dessert you want. You can make any comparison you want. Let's see. I'm going to write about a s'more. The s'more was like heaven. Okay? They're obviously not the same thing. But the good qualities of s'mores, I'm comparing to heaven. Something beautiful. You can think of anything that's beautiful. My mind always goes to something in nature that I like to look at. So I'm going to talk about the mountains. Mount Everest is as beautiful as a bride. So I've used my comparing words as. Like I told you, usually when you use as, you end up with two of them. Is as beautiful as a bride. All right, now the next one's about your shoes. So depending on your shoes, we might have a different thing. My shoes today are boots. So, and they are very old. So I'm going to talk about how old my shoes are. My boots are as old as mummies. Got my comparing words. Oh, you know what? I talked about a mountain here, but they actually want us to write about a mountain down below. So I'm going to skip that one for now. All right, now I'm going to pause really quickly to get the next page up, so hang with me. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. And our screen now is going to show you what metaphors are, okay? Metaphor is the word of the day. So we know a simile compares two things using like or as. Now let's read about a metaphor. Metaphors are used to compare two things that are different in most ways, but are the same in one important way. So far, that definition is the same as a simile, right? Now here is how it's different. A metaphor states that one thing is something else. Unlike a simile, the words as and like are not included. So I will tell you right now, similes have always been easier for me to write. Most of my students usually find that to be true. A metaphor, instead of saying something is like something else, it says that something is something else. Okay? They don't mean it literally, but it is a metaphor. So let's look at some examples. Jake is a wizard with computers. Okay. Now we say things like this a lot. Jake is a wizard. Think about that. Is Jake actually, literally a wizard? No. Not literally, but figuratively. That's why this is called figurative language. Figuratively, we can say this. Jake is a wizard with computers. Now, I didn't say Jake is like a wizard with computers. If I had said that, that would be a simile if I used the word like. He's like a wizard. But if I just say Jake is a wizard with computers, that would be a metaphor. All right, so they are comparing in this one Jake to a wizard. Well, let's look at this one. Lucy's room is a pigsty. Is it literally an area where pigs live? No. But it's a metaphor because they are comparing her room to a pigsty. And they didn't say Lucy's room is like a pigsty. That would be a simile. Or they could have said Lucy's room is as dirty as a pigsty. Those are both similes. But if you just say Lucy's room is a pigsty, which we use those phrases a lot because they're kind of fun to say, that is a metaphor. Okay? All right, so let's look at some more examples. Example, Amy's tears were a river. Okay, well, we're comparing her tears to a river. They're not literally a river. But what does that mean if someone said that? Her tears were a river. Well, it means she cried a lot, right? If you have a river flowing out of your eyes, what I'm picturing is, well, someone's very upset. They're crying a lot. All right, so our job on these metaphors, we're going to read some metaphors today, and we're just going to talk about what they actually mean, okay? So, Dad is a bear in the morning. Dad is a bear in the morning. Well, I don't know any dads that wake up in the morning in the form of a bear. But what could that mean, your dad's like in the morning? What can bears be like? Kind of not real happy when they wake up, a little grumpy, okay? So when they say dad is a bear in the morning, they're comparing the dad to a bear. So that means maybe he's grumpy in the morning, right? So you can say dad's grumpy in the morning. All right, what about this next one? Number 2. My brother is a night owl. All right, it's a metaphor because we didn't say my brother is like a night owl. It just says brother is a night owl. What does that mean? He's not literally an owl, right? It means that the brother likes to stay up late, right? Okay. This next one, the nurse was an angel. Right? We've thought a lot about that during COVID. You know, nurses have been helping, and for a lot of people, you might think of them as an angel. Well, they're not literally an angel, but what does that mean? Okay, if I'm comparing a nurse to an angel, does that mean that she was very special? She helped in a very special way? She's a great person? So the nurse is a good person. Okay, we can even kind of think of it like they saved the day. And our fourth example, Kenny is such a pig. Okay, we say things like that. We're comparing Kenny to a pig. He's not literally a pig. He's such a pig. What trait about pigs are they trying to say Kenny has? We're not real sure. Usually pigs are messy and sloppy, so that's what we can kind of assume, okay? It would be a simile if they said Kenny is like a pig, but they did not, so it's a metaphor. Kenny is such a pig. All right. So I'm going to pause it again. I'll be right back with you. I got to move up the screen. Okay, I am back. All right, now that we have learned what a simile is, remember, similes and metaphors are used to compare two things, but they're different in one important way. Similes always use like or as to make the comparison. Metaphors just say it, okay? So let's do these together. You don't need to worry about writing any of this down. This is just good practice to make sure we understand the difference. All right, we are going to put an S if the sentence is a simile, an M if it's a metaphor, and an N if it's neither a simile or a metaphor. All right, let's start with number 1. Talia's eyes were as bright as the sun. All right, now hopefully you're noticing we've got these comparing words, as, and it looks like they're comparing her eyes to the sun. So that seems like a simile. Number 2, Dad was like a big teddy bear. Well, I heard that comparing word, like. Okay, I think they're comparing Dad to a teddy bear. So that also seems like a simile. All right, this third one. Sandy is a silly monkey. Well, they didn't say Sandy's like a silly monkey. So I think they're comparing Sandy to a monkey. So I think this is going to have to be a metaphor. Number 4. Kelly's eyes are a beautiful shade of green. Okay, first thing I'm noticing, there is no like or as, so it's not a simile. Okay, so is it a metaphor? Kelly's eyes, what are they comparing it to? Are they comparing it to something, or are they just describing her eyes? I think they're just describing her eyes. So since that's all they did, this is neither. Now, if they would have said Kelly's eyes are anything that is green, then that would be a metaphor. But they just described the color. That's not a metaphor. That's neither. Just a sentence. Number 5. The train station was a zoo. All right. I'm checking first for like and as. It's not a simile. But it does seem that they're comparing a train station to a zoo. And there's no like or as, so we know that that's a metaphor. Number 6. The fire was as warm as a crackling fire. Well, if I remember what it says over here. So similes and metaphors are used to compare two things that are not alike in most ways, but are similar in one important way. Are we comparing this fire to something that is mostly not the same but has one thing the same? No. We are comparing a fire to a fire. That's neither. Number 7. The teacher's voice was like thunder. Ooh, I heard that comparing word like. They're comparing the voice to the thunder. So that is a simile. Number 8. The children were as quiet as mice. Well, I've got the as. So the children were as quiet as mice. It's another simile. The children were louder than the adults. Think about that one a minute. First of all, I don't see my comparing words like or as, so it can't be a simile. And I'm checking to see if it's a metaphor. And I don't see it comparing the children to something mostly different. So that's just a normal sentence. Neither. Number 10. His feet were like blocks of ice. All right, right away I found my like. I think they are comparing his feet to blocks of ice. Okay, using like, which makes that a simile. 2 more. My math book is as heavy as my history book. Well, they did use the as thing, so I'm checking to see if it's a simile. They're comparing a math book to a history book. Are those things mostly unalike, or are they mostly the same thing? They're the same, okay? This is a similar example as this one, okay? They're not comparing the math book to something else that's very heavy, so that is neither. You could have said, my math book is as heavy as an elephant, and that would be a simile. Number 12. Jake's bedroom is a disaster area. Okay? I don't see like or as, so it cannot be a simile. So let's see if it's a metaphor. All right, seems to be comparing Jake's bedroom to a disaster area. Now, a disaster area is a pretty severe situation, right? Most bedrooms are not like a disaster area. So this would be a metaphor, right? They're comparing his bedroom to something that's mostly not like a bedroom at all, aside from the fact that both of them are messy. Okay, so this one would be a metaphor. All right. Next week we will continue to work on similes and metaphors. So if you're not quite getting the hang of it, we're going to keep practicing. But your practice today is on IXL. You'll have 2 sentences. Well, actually, I'm not sure how. I don't remember exactly how they showed the information. But you have to determine if something is a simile or a metaphor. Okay? All right. Now, before we go today, I do have a fun video I want to show you. So let me pause real quick to pull the video up, and then you'll be done with your reading lesson. All right, just have to go push play. All right, that's it for today. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you Monday.